I moved back into my childhood home about 3 weeks ago. I didn't think it would feel so strange. I'm 32 now, a freelance writer with my own life. Caring for my grandmother seemed straightforward enough, but the house felt different. It was old and dusty, creaking under the weight of memories. On my first night, I heard something. It started as faint scratching noises. I brushed it off, telling myself it's just the house settling, or maybe my grandmother mumbling in her sleep. I felt silly for even thinking about it. But as the days went on, the sounds got worse. I awoke to soft laughter that sent chills down my spine. Just whispers trailing through the hall, too soft to make out. I could swear I heard footsteps creeping outside my room. It made my heart race every time. One evening, I went to check on my grandmother. She was sitting up in bed, the moonlight casting long shadows on her face. It felt wrong somehow. I asked who she was talking to. "Mabel," she said with a smile. I thought it was confusion from her dementia, but then I remembered the old photos I'd found in the attic. Mabel was in them, an old woman who looked just like my grandmother from years ago. It made me uneasy. The next night, the laughter came again, clearer this time. I climbed out of bed, hands shaking. I tiptoed down the hallway, feeling the old floorboards creak underneath me. I peeked into Grandma's room. She was still wide awake, staring into the corner. "Mabel is here," she said softly. My stomach twisted. I wanted to comfort her, but all I felt was fear. Over the next few nights, the sounds turned chaotic. I thought I saw shadowy shapes darting along the walls, but when I turned to look, nothing was there. It was hard to sleep. I felt the cold grip of being watched. I didn't want to believe something was wrong, but I could not ignore it. Finally, I confronted my grandmother about Mabel. I needed to know more. "She used to come visit," she replied dreamily, before the house fell silent. A cold sweat broke out over me. What did that mean? That night, a loud thud rocked the house. I jolted out of bed and rushed to her room. My heart pounded as I stood outside the door. I reached for the handle, but my hand hesitated. Instinct told me to turn back, but I didn't. Then I heard my grandmother's voice again, but it was different. Not the soft whispers. "Emily, come in. Mabel wants to meet you." My heart sank. I opened the door slowly, a pit in my stomach. The room was dark, filled with shadows. My grandmother sat still, her expression blank, yet strangely welcoming. I stepped inside, but the laughter echoed again. This time it felt colder, more sinister. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was staring into something I wasn't meant to see. I didn't belong here anymore. I stood frozen at the threshold, staring into the murky darkness of my grandmother's room.
Her face was lit by the faint moonlight, but her eyes were locked onto something in the corner, as if engaged in an intense conversation. A shiver ran down my spine. "Mabel?" I whispered, though I didn't know if I was asking her or the shadow swirling in the darkness. Just as I stepped inside, the laughter bubbled up again, high-pitched and echoing. My instinct begged me to turn and run, but my feet felt glued to the floor. I was overwhelming, unsteady, caught in a strange dance between fear and a desperate need for answers. "Mabel is sweet," Grandma said, her voice a low murmur, almost melodic. "She just wants to play." The way she spoke chilled me. Play? I wanted to scream that this wasn't a game. Suddenly, the light flickered. For a heartbeat, I could see the shape in the corner, and it looked like an old woman. Her face was blurred and shadowed, but the outline was unmistakably familiar. It was Mabel. My heart raced. Who was she, and why was she here? "Emily," my grandmother beckoned, her voice stronger now. "You should sit." Her tone dripped with a kind of insistence that sparked unease in me. I stepped back, almost stumbling over the threshold. I wanted to flee, but a part of me itched with curiosity, longing for clarity. "Grandma, who is Mabel?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. My stomach churned with dread. "She was my best friend," she replied, her eyes glazing over as if lost in the past. "We played together all the time, until she went away." A wave of sadness washed over her face. That sadness seeped into me too, but it didn't quell my fear. "What do you mean she went away?" I pressed, picking a cautious step forward. The laughter stopped abruptly. The air turned heavy, thick with tension. "She didn't leave," my grandmother said slowly, as if piecing together a forgotten puzzle. "She waited and waited. She still needs me." Before I could ask another question, the room
shadows deepening. I remembered the attic, where the old family photos had whispered of history, lives intertwined. I was terrified of what I might uncover. I took a step back, nausea swirling at the knowledge that this connection was growing stronger, not weaker. Then a sudden crash echoed through the hallway. It came from downstairs. My heart skipped, and adrenaline surged. I pulled my grandmother closer. "Stay here," I commanded, though I feared those words would mean very little. I rushed toward the door. "Mabel," I called, my voice shaking. "What do you want?" No answer came, just a heavy silence. But something shifted in the air. I felt a presence behind me, lingering, and without looking back, I sprinted into the hall. The front door stood ajar, wind rushing inside as if inviting me to exit. And then I heard it again, a whisper, right in my ear. "Emily." I turned around, dread tightening my chest. The shadows in Grandma's room flickered, and for a split second, I saw Mabel's face, a grin stretching unnaturally wide.
That's when I knew I had to leave. The moment I stepped into the hallway, I felt the air shift. My heart pounded against my ribs, urging me to run. The shadows whispered behind me, teasing my resolve. I barely glanced back to see Grandma still fixed in her spot, her gaze unwavering. Mabel was still there, lurking in the darkness, but I couldn't look back. I had to get downstairs. Each creak of the floorboards beneath my feet felt like an alarm sounding in the quiet house. I reached the staircase and pressed myself to the banister. The crash that had drawn me out of my grandmother's room reverberated through my bones. I couldn't ignore it. It had to mean something. "Emily, don't go," Grandma's voice called, fragile and pained. But I was already descending, driven by a gnawing urge to uncover the truth behind Mabel. The comforting familiarity of my grandmother's house twisted into something ominous as I reached the bottom step. The hall was dim, the shadows carving shapes into the walls. There was a faint glow coming from the living room. I took a breath and pushed the door open. The sight stopped me cold. The furniture was in disarray. A picture frame had fallen off the wall, and the glass lay shattered on the floor. It looked like a struggle had taken place, but it didn't make sense. Just the two of us had been here, and Grandma was still upstairs. My heart raced. What had happened? I stepped cautiously inside, scanning the room, desperate for answers. "Hello?" I called, my voice shaking. Silence answered, thick and suffocating. Then, faintly at first, I heard it, the low hum of laughter, childish and eerie, bubbling out from somewhere deeper in the house, somewhere I didn't want to go. "Mabel," I whispered, a tremor in my voice. I had to know what she wanted. I followed the sound, my pulse quickening. It led me to the kitchen, and there the temperature dropped sharply, breath visible in the air. A figure flickered in the corner of my vision, retreating into the pantry. My instinct screamed to run back up the stairs, but a paralyzing curiosity held me in place. "Show yourself," I shouted, pushing forward. The pantry door creaked as it swung open, revealing darkness deeper than any shadow I'd seen. The laughter increased, morphing into soft giggles, mischievous and taunting. That's when I heard the sound of something dragging across the floor. My eyes widened as I grasped the camera hanging around my neck. It had belonged to Grandma. The instant I focused on it, I spotted a dark smear trailing out from the pantry, leading toward the back door. I knelt down, fear creeping in. What was I looking at? Was it a trick of the light? Or something worse? My hand trembled as I reached out, brushing my fingers against the cold surface. There was no mistaking it, a thick, dark residue. My breathing quickened, and the laughter twisted in my ears again, delighting in my dread.
I stumbled backward just as the back door swung open on its own, inviting the night air in like an offering. I couldn't stay. I needed to get out, away from the chaos. But something told me I wouldn't escape that easy. The laughter grew louder, echoing through my mind. "Emily?" The voice turned chilling, and I turned to flee. Just as I reached the doorway, everything went dark. I gasped as I fought against the darkness. My eyes blinked, trying to adjust, but the shadows enveloped me, thick and suffocating. Worry coiled tightly in my chest. Had I gone blind? Fear gripped me as a frantic thought flashed through my mind. Was Mabel playing with the lights now? "Help!" I shouted, willing my voice to cut through the murk surrounding me. I tried to take a step back toward the kitchen, but I couldn't tell where I was. Just then, a faint flicker of light broke through the gloom, illuminating the outline of a figure. My heart dropped. It was there, just beyond my reach. "Emily?" The voice was softer now, almost tender. I hesitated, my feet glued to the floor. Was it really her? The laughter wasn't as menacing anymore, but that didn't ease my apprehension. "Show yourself," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. Instead of responding, the figure retreated into the pantry once more.
A creeping dread unfurled in my stomach, and I pushed forward, reaching for the flicker of light. As I stepped into the pantry, the world around me shifted. The shadows twisted, contorting into jagged shapes that seemed to claw at my sanity. I fumbled through the darkness until I finally found a small window on my right. I pressed my face against the glass, desperate for clarity. Outside, the moon struggled to break through storm clouds, but something glimmered in the distance, a faint bead of light dancing erratically like a firefly. It made no sense. There shouldn't be anything out there, just thick woods surrounding my grandmother's house. Suddenly, a soft tug drew my attention back to the pantry. I turned around, and my heart nearly stopped. The darkness churned, forming a shape that began to solidify, a small child with wild hair and wide, gleaming eyes. Mabel? My voice cracked, wavering with both fear and a strange sense of connection. She looked different, more solid, but still haunting. Come play with me. Her voice was sweet, yet it sent chills skimming along my spine. Momentarily entranced, I found myself stepping closer. Where's Grandma? I asked, barely above a whisper. She's not here. Mabel giggled, and I fought the urge to recoil. She can't help you. Not anymore. My pulse quickened. Panic surged through me. I stumbled back and collided with a stack of old boxes, sending them toppling over. I could feel Mabel's gaze burning into me as I picked myself up, scrambling to regain my composure. Leave me alone! I screamed, the finality in my voice breaking the thin spell the child had woven. But I felt the weight of her presence, the laughter bubbling up again with a darker tone, echoing off the pantry walls. I turned and fled into the kitchen, my heart racing. I needed to get out. I needed to get away from the horrors that lurked within the house. Then, just like before, I heard it, a dragging sound, slow and deliberate, following me. I darted to the back door, but it suddenly slammed shut, trapping me inside. I slammed my fist against it, panic clawing at my throat. Emily? The voice was closer now, growing more demanding. I stumbled in the direction of the living room, my thoughts racing, but as I turned the corner, I noticed something strange. A shadow loomed taller than any child should be, standing just a few feet away. Someone was in the house with me. I froze, breaths shallow and racing. Then I noticed the glint of something metallic in the dark, and I knew I wasn't alone anymore. I pivoted slowly, trying to keep my breathing steady, the metallic glint now fully in view. It was a knife, resting ominously on the nearby table. My stomach dropped as I realized it wasn't just the child's shadow that loomed over me. There was someone else, standing alone in the dark, shrouded in silence. Who are you? I managed to croak, fighting the urge to run. My voice trembled. The figure didn't answer. Instead, I felt a chill bounce off the walls, wrapping itself around me like a cold blanket. I considered my options. I could either confront this stranger or use the momentum of my fear to escape through the kitchen window. But I needed to know, if I didn't confront it now, I might never get the chance again. I stepped closer, squinting to try and decipher the details of the figure before me. Are you here for Mabel? I asked, my heart hammering in my chest. As I spoke her name, the shadows around the figure seemed to twist and pulse, as if in response. Shh, it replied, the voice low and gravelly. My blood turned to ice. The last word hung in the air, its significance sending a wave of dread crashing over me. I glanced backwards toward the pantry. What was Mabel doing? Before I could ponder further, the stranger moved slightly. I caught a glimpse of its face, and an icy jolt ran through me. It looked familiar, too familiar. It had the same wild hair and glowing eyes I had seen just moments ago. Mabel, my voice was barely a whisper. The figure stepped forward, revealing more of itself. It was simply another version of her, only older, and wrapped in a shroud of shadow that seemed to claw at the very edges of reality. Two versions of Mabel. I stumbled back, panic flooding my thoughts. This wasn't right. My eyes darted around the room, looking for an escape, but the walls felt like they were closing in. Let's play a game, she said, her tone tilting dangerously. Would you like to? No, I shouted, my voice echoing off the walls with newfound strength. I just want to leave.
As if mocking my desperation, she tilted her head in a way that made me feel as if she were deciding my fate. Why run? The voice spoke again, lighter this time, filled with an unsettling playfulness. You haven't even seen the best part yet. Then the dragging sound returned, more pronounced now, as though it was coming from all directions at once. I turned in a circle, trying to pinpoint its source, when suddenly everything went dark again. The dim light flickered and faded, swallowed by the dense shadows. I was momentarily disoriented, but then I felt it, a sharp tug at my sleeve. I yanked away, panic surging as I prepared to bolt. I could feel the presence of both Mabels closing in. The laughter echoed off the walls, like my own heart pounding in unison. I couldn't stay here. I had to get out, but I had no idea where to go. My hands shot out into the darkness, searching for a way forward. The shadows morphed again, and just as I thought I had found a path, I felt something cold and solid grip my wrist. I gasped, trying to jerk free, and that's when I noticed it. The glint of the knife was gone. I was not just trapped in the house anymore. I was trapped in a nightmare. I wrenched myself away from the grip, heart racing. The sound of hushed laughter echoed behind me, a taunting reminder that I was not alone. Adrenaline shot through my veins, urging me to escape this suffocating nightmare. I stumbled blindly through the room, feeling the cold air wrap around me like a vice. Fumbling in the darkness, I reached out for the kitchen doorway. My fingers brushed against the wood, but just as relief washed over me, a shrill voice broke through the silence. "You're not leaving so easily." I turned around, and both Mabel stepped into the flickering light, their faces twisted into grotesque smiles, eyes gleaming with a malevolent light. I felt bile rise in my throat. Whatever game they wanted to play, I was determined to avoid it. "Please," I begged, desperation rising in my chest. "What do you want?" The younger Mabel stepped closer, her smile only widening. "You'll find out soon enough," she sang, her voice dripping with menace. "But first, let's have some fun." Without warning, the shadows behind them surged forward, swallowing the light whole. I stumbled back, closing my eyes for a moment, trying to steady my frantic thoughts. My mind raced for a plan. Escape was my only option. But where? With eyes still slightly adjusting to the darkness, I made a dash toward the old hallway leading to the back of the house. The echoes of their laughter followed, mocking my every move. The air grew heavier, as if the darkness was a living entity trying to pull me back. I could barely make out the shapes of familiar furniture, the chipped cabinet, the worn armchair. I pushed forward, my pulse echoing in my ears. Then I remembered the pantry. It had a small window. If I could just reach it. Suddenly, something sharp scraped against my ankle.
I stumbled, nearly losing my balance, and glanced down to see what had tripped me. A blackened toy with jagged edges lay on the floor, a relic of Mabel's childhood, a connection to a time that felt eerily distant. I seized it, driven by instinct and desperation. As I rushed toward the pantry, the shadows twisted and thickened around me. I was almost there when I heard the older Mabel's voice behind me. "You don't know what's in there, do you?" I hesitated, my heart racing. Was she talking about the pantry or something more? Panic filled me. I didn't want to find out. I yanked open the pantry door, the musty scent hitting me like a wave. I climbed up on my tiptoes, reaching for the window, when something cold and clammy wrapped around my waist. "No!" I screamed, twisting away in a panic. But it held firm, yanking me back with an otherworldly grip. And then I saw it, the reflection of a face forming in the darkness, my own twisted in agony, surrounded by those I feared. The scene sent a shock through me, but as it echoed in my mind, a realization dawned. They weren't just games. They were memories, stitched from my own fears and insecurities. I had to wake up from this nightmare. With new determination, I began to fight against the grip, forcing my hands free. I still had the toy. I twisted, swinging it blindly, hoping it would break whatever hold they had over me. Then everything went quiet, eerily still, as if the darkness was holding its breath. That's when I felt it, a sudden release, and the grip loosened. I dashed for the window, adrenaline fueling me. The glow of moonlight leaked through the crack, offering the first real hope I'd felt since stepping inside. With a last push, I climbed up. I had to escape. But as I looked back for one final glance, I froze. Those familiar eyes, two sets now glaring at me, filled with motivation and something else, something that whispered, "You can't leave." And just like that, the darkness began to pulse again, swelling with a life of its own. I was poised on the edge of the window, heart pounding, the moonlight casting eerie patterns on the floor. But when I caught sight of the Mabel's grins, a paralyzing fear gripped me. That need to escape clashed with the realization that I didn't know what the future held outside these familiar walls. As I turned to leap through the window, a cacophony of laughter erupted. The shadows surged forward again, wrapping around my limbs like a thick fog, pulling me back. I fought harder, kicking and twisting, determined to break free.
The toy in my hand felt like a flimsy weapon against this darkness, but it was all I had. Then, in a moment of clarity, I forced myself to look at the Mabels. They were still there, and their expressions shifted from playful malice to something darker, angrier. "You think you can escape?" the younger Mabel hissed, her voice like nails scraping against metal. The grip around me tightened, a vice of unyielding shadow.
I couldn't let it end here. I swung the jagged toy wildly, rumbling against whatever held me. To my surprise, the darkness shrieked, a high-pitched wail that echoed off the walls. It released me for just a heartbeat, and I seized the opportunity. I leapt through the window. The cold air hit me like a slap. I landed awkwardly outside, tucking and rolling into the damp grass. Pain shot up my arm, but I pushed myself up, ignoring it. I glanced back at the house, a tangled, looming structure that felt alive, breathing like a predator hungry for its prey. Then I ran. The night was a blur, shadows clinging to me as if willing me to return. I made my way toward the edge of the property, my breath coming in short gasps. I had to put distance between myself and the house. It felt like the walls were reaching for me, trying to consume me whole. As I neared the old oak tree at the property line, I paused, searching for any sound besides my ragged breathing. That's when I caught it. A faint, chilling melody wafting through the night air. It was a tune I knew all too well from my childhood, the lullaby my grandmother used to sing to me before bed. Confusion hit me like a wave. Why was it calling me now? My instinct screamed to flee, but I found myself stepping closer, drawn to the sound. The wind picked up, swirling around me, wrapping around my legs, trying to keep me in place. I shook my head, forcing myself to think. The Mabels had used memories against me before. Was it a trap? But then another sound cut through the lullaby, the unmistakable creak of the front door opening. It came from deep inside the house. Fear knotted my stomach. Someone was still in there, someone who could be watching me. I felt a cold sweat break out as that thought settled in. I turned, half expecting to see the Mabels materializing from the shadows. The fear propelled me, and I ran back toward the road, away from the haunting echoes of my past. But as I sprinted into the night, that lullaby lingered in my mind, a haunting reminder of the dark connection I couldn't shake. What had I just escaped? And who or what was in the house now? I ran and ran, not stopping to look back. The shadows seemed to pulse behind me, a living reminder of the Mabel's twisted joy. My heart hammered as I reached the road. The air tasted metallic, and every instinct told me to keep moving, to put as much distance between me and the house as I could. But then an unsettling thought struck me. Where would I go? I couldn't simply vanish into the night without a plan. I needed to find safety. That idea brought me to a standstill. I was all alone. As I caught my breath, I scanned my surroundings. The dark trees loomed on either side, their branches curling like fingers ready to ensnare me. I could feel their presence pressing in, a reminder of the wretched memories tethered to the house. Tugging on my instincts, I forced myself to keep moving.
I spotted a path leading to a nearby clearing, where the moonlight pooled like a soft blanket. It was better than lingering on the road, exposed and vulnerable. I stepped toward the clearing and suddenly halted. The lullaby pierced the silence again, more insistent now, echoing off the trees. It was disorienting. I gritted my teeth, wrestling with the memories that surged forth. Esteemed moments with my grandmother unfolded in my mind like snapshots. The warmth of her embrace, the smell of freshly baked cookies, her gentle voice cutting through the chaos of the world. Then that chilling contrast, the way she'd later fallen into darkness, slipping through my fingers like sand. But that wasn't all. Another image burst through the haze, a stormy night, whispers creeping into my dreams, shadows dancing in the corners of my mind. I could feel her presence now, hovering, watching, a specter blending the past with the present. Suddenly, I noticed something tucked against the base of a nearby tree, a small wooden box, nearly swallowed by the underbrush. My heart raced. Could this be something of my grandmother's? I hesitated, glancing back toward the house, wrestling with fear and curiosity. Torn between the urge to flee and the desire to understand, I crouched down, my fingers brushing against the rough wood. The lullaby grew louder, almost joyful, as I lifted the box into my hands. It was heavier than it looked. I opened it slowly, the creak of the hinges sounding painfully loud in the stillness around me. Inside lay faded photographs, old letters, and trinkets that set my mind swirling with memories. I picked up a locket, its surface cold against my palm, and there, nestled within the box, I spotted something, a tiny, intricate toy that resembled the one I had fought with earlier. As I stared, a shadow flickered at the corner of my vision. I turned sharply, scanning the tree line. There was nothing there, only the sinister silence of the night. I swallowed hard, the air thick with unease.
Then I felt it, a presence pushing against my back, a gaze that sent chills down my spine. "You've come back," a voice whispered from the dark. I turned, and that's when I saw the outline of a figure just beyond the shadows, its features obscured. My stomach dropped. "Who are you?" I managed to choke out, adrenaline flooding my system. Too late, I realized that I might have uncovered something I wasn't ready to face.
My heart raced as I squinted through the darkness, trying to make out the figure's features. The voice had a husky quality, almost familiar, but the shadows concealed any hint of recognition. I took a cautious step back, gripping the box tightly against my chest, as if it could shield me. "Who are you?" I pressed again, my voice firmer now. I battled the urge to flee, forcing myself to stand my ground. "Someone who's been waiting," the figure replied, its tone unsettlingly calm. "You've returned to us." To her. My mind reeled. My grandmother.
What did they know? How was I connected to this person? I had come to find closure, but the answer only opened more questions. I stepped back again, the box now feeling like a heavy weight rather than a comfort. "Waiting? For what?" I spat, annoyance seeping into the fear. "What do you want?" The figure stepped closer, and the moonlight caught a glint of something, a flash of silver hair beneath a dark hood. My breath hitched. "She wants you to remember." I swallowed hard. Memories surged. My grandmother's final days spent in that house, her whispers as she slipped away. But that wasn't what haunted me. Every night I'd hear strange noises from her room, soft cries, laughter tinged with madness that echoed in my mind. "Remember what?" I challenged, but my voice wavered. "Before it was taken." The figure's words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken history. The things you hid, the secrets buried deep. Something twisted inside me. The box trembled in my hands as the lullaby flared back to life, twisting into a cacophony of laughter and cries. I shut my eyes tight, fought against the memories demanding to resurface. "Leave me alone," I shouted into the dark, panic fueling my anger. "You can't run from the truth," the figure replied, stepping closer still. I felt the chill seep into my bones. "It's all started again, and only you can end it." When I opened my eyes, the figure flickered like a candle in the wind. It was there, and then it wasn't. My heart sank. I took another step back, but that was my mistake. In an instant, the shadows behind me writhed and surged forward. I stumbled, feeling the darkness crawl over me, dragging me down. Panic shot through my veins. I couldn't breathe, couldn't see, and the world around me melted into black. I threw the box aside and ran, my instinct screaming to escape. But as I sprinted through the clearing, the laughter intertwined with my own desperate breaths, echoing, taunting, pulling me back toward the house. Then everything went dark. I jolted awake, the world around me slowly resolving from a hazy blur. My head throbbed, the remnants of terror still clinging to my mind. I was no longer in the clearing, but lying on the damp grass of my grandmother's yard, the house looming before me, its windows like dark eyes watching my every move. I sat up, heart racing. The night was eerily silent, as if everything froze in fearful anticipation. Reality folded in on itself for a moment. The weight of my earlier encounters crashed over me like a wave. Those haunting laughter, the relentless tug of memory. Where was Mabel? Where was the figure? I stood, shaking off the remnants of fear. My gaze darted toward the house. Could I really go back in? Just the thought made my stomach twist, yet unanswered questions gnawed at me. What did my grandmother want me to remember? Why did it feel like everything had circled back to this moment? I glanced around the yard, searching for comfort in the familiar.
The oak tree felt like a guardian, its branches stretching wide. I took a deep breath and began to step closer to the door, the urge to unravel this mystery overwhelming. The door creaked open with the slightest push, revealing the dark interior. Shadows danced on the walls, whispering echoes of past lives. I hesitated, wondering if it was too late, if anything lingered inside that would ensnare me again. But I knew I couldn't be trapped by fear anymore. I crossed the threshold, the air thick with memories, and moved down the hallway. Each step felt heavy. No laughter, no whispers, just a suffocating silence that enveloped me. I stopped in the living room. The familiar warmth was sour, mixed with something acrid. And then I noticed it. The box I had dropped outside lay on the coffee table, an ominous reminder of my last moments there. Without thinking, I opened it again. The photographs and trinkets shimmered in the dim light, fragments of stories half told. I felt a pulse of energy run through me, and I picked up the toy, clutching it tightly. Whatever the force that sought to chain me had not fully taken hold. I could remember. I could piece together whatever fragments linked Mabel to my past. Just as I closed my eyes to gather my thoughts, I heard it, a light chuckle, echoing from the hallway. It felt familiar, too close. My chest tightened. There was no denying it now. Mabel was still here. Somehow she'd taken a part of me. The shadows seemed to wrap around me. I pinched the toy, feeling the edges pressing against my palm. I wasn't going to let them win. "Show yourself," I shouted, my voice carrying strength I didn't know I possessed. "What do you want?" "What I want," the playful voice replied, materializing from the shadows, "is for you to remember Emily. You have to share the games. It's so lonely otherwise." I could see the outline of her, an amalgamation of childlike enthusiasm and something darker. In an instant, I felt the dynamic shift. I was no longer the prisoner. I was a part of this game. "Remember," she sang softly, "it's all connected. I just wanted you to play." The words dug into me. Remembering meant confronting my fears, the connection I had with this girl and my grandmother, a web spun together by grief and secrets, longing to be unraveled. And as she reached for me, I felt the weight of the reach extend beyond the shadow. "No," I said, stepping back. "You're not in control. I can choose to remember, but I can also choose to let go." Mabel paused, tilting her head as if processing the challenge. I focused back on the toy in my grip. Deep within me, a rush of resolve built up. Whatever darkness lay before me could not define my past or the connection I had with my grandmother. "I can let you go," I continued, swallowing the growing fear, "but you must promise to leave this place behind." Mabel's form flickered, hesitating for mere moments that felt like eternity. "Do you suppose so?"
She answered, the playfulness turning into something sharper. "I will always remind you." "Then I'll remember without your games," I declared, a sudden calm settling in. In that instant, an overwhelming light filled the room. It surged through me, flickering like fragile hope. The shadows shrieked, demanding, much like the echoes of lost memories. But the light pushed back, illuminating everything, dispelling the fear and the haunting laughter. In the blinding radiance, something changed. I saw my grandmother's gentle face, her years spent within these walls resonating with sorrow and joy. And then, just like that, the darkness began to unravel, dissolving back into the corners of the room. I stumbled backward, still able to see, as Mabel's form began to shatter like glass, smiling one last time before becoming nothing but a whisper. "You can't escape your memories, Emily." Just like that, I was alone once more, in a house that felt like it had been reclaimed. The laughter faded into silence. The whispers no longer filled the air. I could breathe again. I looked around, flooded with a mix of relief and unease. Had I truly freed myself from this haunting, or merely postponed the inevitable? And was Mabel truly gone, or simply lingering, waiting for me to revisit that place where shadows mingled with memories? As I stepped outside, the moon was high above, casting shadows that danced on the grass, echoing the intertwined fates of my grandmother and Mabel. My heart ached with unanswered questions, but for now, I was free. For now, I could choose to remember. Those still linger, and I wonder sometimes what lies ahead, waiting just out of reach.